you're live. That was quick. So we'll see how much that caught of the previous conversation. Welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 247. I'm your host, Greg Gabb. The gang's all here. We got Mike and Gio and Don and John and Garth and Gary's here and Yuna and Dewan and Anders. Awesome. We got a bunch of cool people. Paul was asking about the link, but I don't see him in here yet. Hopefully he pops in. Anyways, today we're going to start off and give the disco racers an opportunity to talk about their event, the good, bad, and the ugly. So with that, go ahead, Gio.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Well, this is my kind of bit of my take on the car preparations for this event. So this is the Suzuka Double Digital event that was held at the end of January in Best, nearby Eindhoven in the Netherlands. So this is the 10th anniversary, so there was also a cake involved in this, but I have not taken any picture of that. And for this event, the team that we went up there was formed by myself as a captain, and I also named the team K9. Wayne, which we know is here, around here, lurking and maybe commenting later on, and also Gary Skip, one of the founder of the DISCA, the Digital Slot Car Association. So I'm gonna focus on as I mentioned, the car preparation. So for those of you that have been living under a rock in the last 10 years, so this digital event consists of two main races. So on Saturday we have the GT3 races, which are basically two races of 1.5 hours each, and then on Sunday is the big event, the 6-hour WEC race, where you have 3 different classes competing. So there is the LMP1, or actually should be hypercars, then LMP2 and GT3 LM. So with my team, basically we entered one GT3 car that for the Saturday race and an hypercar for the Sunday WEC race. So this is the GT3 car that I went after. So it's a Ferrari 488 GT3 Evo from Kessel Racing, and I use for this sideways fantasy car 1, which is actually not a GT3 Evo, but I mean, those are details. I took so long for them to come out that they still produced the first iteration of the car. Anyway, so as per usual, I start by measuring, looking at the weight of the body, because kind of try to make some savings. I think I've talked a bit about this from another sideways 488 that I prepared. So there is a lot of gain that could be found if you change the interiors. That is 10 grams. I mean, it's 9 grams. That's quite a lot. Anyway, so reducing and removing the weight. So this I kind of from the body removing extra plastic, I went down to kind of 7 grams, which is a kind of good starting point. And then with some other details like the wheel and stuff, I mean, the car can go up to 11.5 grams, or the body of the car can go up to that level, which is a good starting point. Just to basically be clear, we have specific minimum weights for the different classes. So for GT3, the overall car should be no less than 88 grams, and the body minimum weight should be 22 grams. So that's kind of the minimum weight. But of course, I mean, if you can start kind of with a lower weight and then just adding where you need to add, then I think you can get a better performance, let's say, or hope for getting better performance. So while I was preparing our entry, the Kessel one, I was also kind of preparing another body, the gold one. And so then at the end, I was indecisive between the two, but then I went for the yellow one because it's much more visible on the track. So here are some pictures of the different preparations. So we did the painting first, then decal, and then installing LEDs. So for this Ferrari, because I already have done another Ferrari, the red one for Belfast, maybe a couple months before, more or less I already knew what I was doing, but I just made some kind of small kind of differences where, to add a bit more details. And actually I have a follow-up video for those interested in how I do the light installation, providing a bit more details instead of just pictures. This is, so as I mentioned before, the interiors are pretty hefty. So I have, I normally, what I do, I change them for my own like format one. So these are the picture of those, of both of them. And so basically they are painted, decorated by me. And so this is the car. After the LEDs are all installed and wired up, so I try to do some kind of testing to see how the brightness works here. So I had to kind of do some bit of changes, and this is more or less the final product. The main difference compared to the previous Ferrari is that the 488, actually I think also the 458, has these elongated, let's say, front lights where there are some elements, some lights shining also, on the top side. In the previous Ferrari, I didn't do it, but in these ones, I put some extra LEDs and also color in different ways in order to have, again, a unique color of, unique LEDs that you will help recognize your car while it's on the track. And so these are some fine tuning that, doing for checking the weight of the car. At the end, I had to kind of put a bit of extra lead for getting the minimum weight to 88 grams. And this also, you can see the interiors of the car. There is a rule that says that if your car is below the minimum weight, then you need to add some lead or extra ballast. But the ballast should be not below the 1.5 millimeter mark. So they want you to put as not in the ideal place to kind of have a low CG. But there is an exception when you talk about basically bits and bolts that relate to your light kit, at least for now. And so I try to kind of use that loophole to try to get it to the weight without basically compromising my CG. So this is the car on the track on the Suzuka circuit. I think we managed to qualify, thanks to Gary, third, if I recall correctly. And as I mentioned, there are two races, right? So each of them 1.5 hour, and you have to change drivers and specific times across the race. So these are the results for our for both. For race 1 and race 2. So in race 1, we came third behind CrossFit Academy, and then and Slot Race Friends. So both of them very decent teams. So the finish, the distance between our team, our car, and Slot Car Friends was very, very kind of close after 400 laps. I think it was just a few meters apart, the difference. So I think Wayne was the last one racing that was gaining on them, and but then I think he had the off at the end. Maybe you can comment later on. So anyway, third. Then what we did, we changed the gearing, so went a bit taller, so the car had a bit more speed. And so for race 2, we improved our race. So this was in the last stint. That was basically driving the car against slot race friends, so we're like swapping position. To be honest with you, I thought that we're still kind of fighting for a third position. So yeah, I mean, I was trying to kind of take over the position from slot race friends, and I was messing up coming off. So at the end, I decided, I have to kind of relax, enjoy the race, and see what happens. And then I managed to claw back the position. Then I discovered that it was for second place, which was nice. And as you can see, we managed 414 laps. So if we had changed the gearing before on the for race one, we could have been close also to pro speed. At least, I mean, could have been, a good battle for first position actually.
It
And
was quite unfortunate what happened with the way. Hey, Gio.
Hey.
Surprise. It's quite unfortunate what happened to Wayne in the first race with losing the second place, because he was involved in an accident on the last corner of the last lap, just with a back marker, and that allowed the slot race friend's car to sneak ahead and cross the line, right in the dying seconds of the race, and the margin was the length of the home straight. So just these things happen.
Yeah. And actually, what happened was that for Chrono, we were still ahead of them. But when the race finished,
Chrono didn't even pick it up. Yeah.
yeah. So when the race finished, I think they roll over the start finishing line, and we're just behind. And Chrono basically could not complete the lap. So, looking at the Chrono and kind of standings, we were in front of them. But yeah. Okay, so then for the guys here, DTS 2.0, these are the local guys, and as you can see, they are in another. I mean, when the car goes well for them and they don't have any problem, they are on another league compared to us. For the second, for the WEC race, so this is the car that we enter. So it's Cadillac V Series R, and we use the skeletal body at least, and then we used different chassis for the chassis, basically 3D printed ones. So again, similar kind of business. So I started by looking at the weight of the body and where gains could be made. So there are some changes in some of the components of the body. So for instance, if you remember last year, we had the problem where the front part of the body attaching to the rest of the car body is through these kind of screws here, which makes the mounting very stiff and fragile at the same time. So in fact, ours broke. I mean, it was held until the end of the race by just the wiring of the lights. So this year I took a completely different approach, removing all of that, put some E6000 and then kind of layer up with some tape, and it worked pretty well. Actually, the car at the end of the race was still immaculate after going through some very hard crashes. So this is the painting of the car. It's a pretty kind of straightforward. The only kind of a difficult part, at least for me, because I never done before, is that there is kind of fading between the red and the black part of the car. So actually, this is done in the rear car. I think it's done through not painting, but through the let's say
vinyl wrap
wrappers basically. So they wrap it up. So and they have it's not a random pattern. So I have there were the decals as well to do that, but I decided to go freehand there, and it's a combination of black and also smoke paint that I used. I learned this from Tamari. Actually, you can see the smoke here up on the tape. So the decals are for both cars. Actually, the decals are from MTR32, I think. So you can see that at the end, after decals, paint, and clear coat, the overall weight of the car is 8 grams, so just above 8 grams. Also for this class, we have minimum weight. And so basically you need to kind of make it through different means. Interior, so again, this stuff is vacuum formed by myself using the stock interior and then kind of painted by me. Okay, so I think that one of the main features for this car is the big vertical lights that are on the tail. So I don't know. There could be different ways of doing this. I mean, the rear car is a unique piece of plexiglass, I think, or stripe, LED stripe. I don't have anything close to that so thin. So I use my, standard small LEDs, and then I kind of, I made I put like 6 on each side, 3 on the upper right for the tail, and 3 inside the lower part elements of the car. Most of the lights that I installed replicate the lights that are in the rear car, at least as a positions or kind of close to the dimension. So for learning from last year race, this year I decided, to add a bit more redundancy on the light. So we had the problem with our stay alive capacity, or actually capacitor was the issue. So for this year, what I decided was to have 2 systems running the lights. So one that runs most of the LEDs through my own kind of, using some resistors here, similar to what I do for my light kit, attached to a capacitor here. And then I have a second set of lights running through the SP44 light kit. The only things that I did in order to balance the weight here was to remove the cap from the PCB and put on here on the side. Then I remember why was the problem that our cap was failing, and that was because the cap is a 5.5 volts, and I was blasting it at 12 volts, which basically it's taking power directly from the truck. So I did another modification that is not here, which is basically putting another cap in series with this one, which basically solved that issue. So here is the light, the light installation live, in a small video. So what you can see, the flashing lights here in front and the one on the back are the one attached to the SP44, and the SP44 is taking power from the motor side. So when it's stationary, basically kind of blinks, and the rest of the lights are taking power directly from the front or from the guide, let's say. So they are, once you put the car on, the lights come on. And the idea is that during the race, you need to have at least 1 light in front and 1 light on the back that are on, either on the track or off track. And we managed to finish the race with all 32 LEDs working, which is a bit of a success compared to last year, all improvements. Yeah, here a bit more other details about the weight and whatnot. So maybe it's getting a bit boring, but my plan was to use an SRP chassis, and SRP does 2 versions of the chassis, lightweight and a heavy one. Because my pile of parts, it's a mess. I took the first one that I saw, that is the heavy one, and so basically, as you can see, the car was gonna end up, being too heavy. So here is the chassis sitting at almost 60 grams. The car body was 17 grams, and I need to put another 3 grams to do minimum weight that is 20 grams. So overall, if I put everything together, it would be more than, close to 80 grams, which is too much. The minimum weight for the WEC body, the full car is 72. So I had to shed quite a lot of weight. And then I remember that, maybe I used the wrong one, so I need to use the new one. And this was just before my flight to the Netherlands. So I had to kind of rebuild the bloody car or the bloody chassis. And now basically this is with the new chassis, which is much lighter than the other one. So I think I shed like 3 or 4 grams from compared to the other SRP ones. And anyway, so putting everything together, this is the actual picture. So the car will be around 75 grams, which for WEC car with the flat 6 being 3 grams over the mean weight is not too bad, not too shabby. Anyway, so these are shots before the departure with I mean, integrating the all parts, to see if everything fits. I think I managed to do also some laps, and it seems that everything was working as required. So before flying to Eindhoven or Amsterdam. So this is the car on the track. So I like this picture. The first one you see here, this was Wayne taking this picture. So if you see here, there are no numbers because the actual decals was a 31 for this car. Our number that I had in the decals was a 31, but our ID was initially 11 and then changed to 3. And the race director basically gives you these the decals for your ID basically that you're going to use on the race. So we had to use that one. So I managed to kind of put it on before the actual race. So this is what the car looked like with the actual number that it raced with. As you can see, the chassis now is white. So because we're using Wayne Cat chassis for the actual race. So the car was, let's say, both chassis were not, I would say, super great. So we worked it out, or maybe Wayne, and with some feedback from Gary, kind of worked it out to get the car to decent, to perform decently, let's say. So Gary managed then to, I think it was maybe, I don't know, we're like a few minutes before qualifying close to manage to a third fastest lap. So we start third in the grid. And in the end, we end up finishing 4th. And so again, there was a close call between our team K9 and Pro Speed Academy. We're like swapping position for most of the race. Usually when Gary was on, he was overtaking them and giving us some leads. Then Wayne and myself maintaining the lead. But I had the car in the last half an hour of the race, which was during the dark. And it's my preferred time of the race, but I don't know, halfway through the car, I thought was losing the performance, was slowing down. And then one car kind of lane change on ours, and there was a bit of explosion. So the car went off the lane and or the slot, and also the wheel came off. So Wayne basically put the wheel on, and I managed basically to maintain the 4th position. There wasn't no way that I was gonna catch up with Pro Speed. So overall, we finished 3rd in class because Pro Speed they were racing an LMP2 car and was behind basically DTS to Zero, again, the local team, and the SCA, that is one of the top teams in Belgium. The guys are running the what's called it, the basically the one running the Paul Ricard track. So yeah, I mean, I think that's all from my side. So it's here me myself and taking the trophy because the guys had to leave. Gary and Wayne had to leave because of the ferry crossing back to UK. We're not gonna wait for them, so I was just by myself. Anyway, that's all. By the way, guys, your controller is still cloned on my controller. So if you're gonna race, you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna be in a race with both of your controllers. You're gonna control the same car. So be aware of that. I've got to say this. So yeah, and this basically it's a back home with the trophies for for the three for the three races actually. So third, second, and fourth. So in average, we manage a third place. That's all.
All right, let's let Gary say whatever he wants to say before Wayne takes over. You have anything to
I
add to
don't.
what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot to add. I just joined the call to support the guys and add any information where I could. In terms of the WEC race, I guess the things I would say are we only did 10 laps in qualifying, something like that.
Yeah.
I did, yeah, did a few qualifying laps, put the car on third initially, and then we failed tech because front axle was too wide by, I don't know, 0.2, 0.4 millimeters, something like that. So Wayne addressed that. And then by the time it was, that meant we lost our qualifying time because we failed tech. So had to go out and do another time. By that time, the track was in darkness for some reason. Not quite sure why there was a dark period in the middle of qualifying. So that was a little bit of an inconvenience to deal with. But I did a sort of benchmark time, which I think was around 11.5 seconds, something like that. It's decent, but it's not the best. And then they announced from race control that the lights would be coming back on. And I remember saying, okay, well, let's park it then and do another lap when the lights come on. So we did that. And then it was another case of, out lap, hot lap. What was that time? What was the qualifying time? 11.23, something like that. It was a fast lap. You know when you do a fast lap. I said, that's the one. So yeah, the grand total of 90 minutes of qualifying or whatever it is, we only did 10 laps, but that was good enough to put us where we were. So that's it. I mean, I'll let Wayne take over now. I'm sure he's got a much better analysis of the race than what I can have.
For instance, I didn't know that we failed tech for the width of the front axle.
News to you.
Yeah.
It's news to me, yeah. Sorry.
Wow.
So-
Shades of Team McLaren in 1976. Well done.
Yeah.
All right,
It's quite impressive considering we increased the minimum width of the cars this year, and it was still too wide. So.
All right, Wayne, what you got?
Hang on, I got to get a pillow. Just a second.
You're muted, or your mic isn't turned on, or something.
No, not muted.
Yeah, it says you're not muted. Oh, I hear noises. It's muffling you.
Yeah, well, unmute your phone because it's on twice, right?
Yeah. See if that works better.
He's got it set to wife mode.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking to you via my phone.
Yes,
Do I now need to turn down my PC?
yes.
Volume, yeah.
Yeah, suddenly you're Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
No, that's
Oh.
worse.
Okay. Hopefully you can hear me properly now.
Yeah.
Not a lot to add. The shape of the weekend was that as soon as we got the cars on the track, we knew we got a complete beaut in the GT3 car. That did a few laps, and it was like, that is what I would have asked for if I could have had what I wanted. And it was like, okay, we'll rest that for now, and we'll try the WEC. They're both the two WECs, because we've got one body shell there and two chassis for it. One the SRP, and I prepared a cat. And quite honestly, the WEC car fought us really hard, really hard. We went all the way through Friday afternoon and evening, running the WEC car where most people were running GT3s. In fact, one team asked us, why are you running the wrong car? Not the car that you're going to be racing first. And the reply to that was, well, it's easy because this one's not working. This is the one that needs effort, and the other one we're happy with. And quite honestly, even so, we did the first two races, which were good. I mean, I don't remember much about qualifying with regard to that car. It was a case of It was quick out the box, and it did the lap time, and it qualified us quite near the front. And that, you know, your actual grid position doesn't really much matter for an endurance race. It's really all about where you get to stand on the podium. And if you're in one of those top 3 qualifying spots, you're going to get to stand in your favourable place on the podium, which is what we did. And I think the first race, Gary started. Gio took the centre stint, and I had the car at the end. I had it for precisely 24 minutes, and I really struggled with it. I did 2 sectors of 10 minutes, which I can measure, and they were respectable. They were comparable to what Gio did. Not quite as quick as the car had gone at the beginning. But my feeling was that the car was difficult to maintain your track position with regard to the other quick cars on the track. You had to brake later, you had to accelerate earlier. You really had to be close to the limit all the time to be able to just keep up. And so I said, it feels like we're a bit down on speed. Can we change the car for the second race? What have we got to lose? We're going to go off the back of the grid because the second race has a reverse grid. We'd finished 3rd in the first, so we were going to be starting at the back. And I don't quite know how the lottery worked for who drove in which order for the second race, but I actually took the end of the first race and the start of the second. And I went from the back of the grid, made my way through the grid quite easily at the beginning from a clean start. At the back, you get to choose your moment, don't you? You know, you just run around. Everyone starts on 2 lanes, so you've got loads and loads of cars in front of you. And you just carefully pick your way through, trying to avoid all the damage, all the accidents. And lo and behold, suddenly you're running in the top half of the field. And yeah, I don't really remember exactly where I got to. About 4th or 5th, I think, overall. But we overstretched Gary's stint because the driver changes take place inside of a 10-minute window. You can kind of stretch a driver's stint, which is nominally 30 minutes, but you can get a couple of minutes either side of that. So by Gary going on in the middle and Gio taking the car slightly after the 60-minute elapsed, Gary did a larger stint than us, and that really made the difference. And I think that's what got us into 3rd place. And Gio closed it out by holding on to it. And the two GT3 races were fantastic. Very happy with our result. Higher than we expected. And a lot more laps than we managed to do last year. Those were the targets. Do more laps than last year. The rest of it, we'll just take what we get. Didn't expect to be as competitive as we were, quite honestly. But that car was a peach. And then Saturday night, there is another practice session for WEC, and then the first qualifying session for WEC. By this time, we're all pretty pooped, exhausted by the schedule and the travel, etc., etc. And the WEC was still fighting us. We had 2 chassis. We kept sending both chassis out. We kept Gary on as the main testing driver. We could evaluate his lap times. We could watch the car from the trackside. We could speak to him when he came off. And repeatedly, although we got 2 cars, no matter what we did to either of them, the car was not quite on the pace. It didn't look that good on the track. And the driver was saying, well, neither of them are great, but of the 2, the white one, the one that Wayne prepped, is the one that just feels a little better. And that was reflected in the lap times. It turned out that these aftermarket chassis are not always, in my opinion, the silver bullet that you need to fix one of these Scale Auto cars. If you're lucky and you get a flat chassis, I think the Scale Auto chassis can be quite acceptable. But a lot of people struggle with those chassis either being warped straight away out the box or being unable to flatten them. And if they overdo the temperatures when they try to flatten them, I'm hearing that they actually shrink a little and just change shape and don't fit anymore. Now, those problems don't tend to occur with the 3D printed alternatives. And as we got 2 of those, both different, but both had a similar problem. They were both quite bendy. Gio had even raced, he'd even run his car on the Sunday before the event, and he'd managed to pop a respectable lap time in the mid 11s. Now, I think pole position for WEC was an 11.1. Nobody had hit the 10s, but if you're in the low half of the 11s, then you're really flying. So, yeah, Gio had done an 11.6 a week ago, and every time we put that car back out again, we couldn't get it much underneath a 12, could we? The white one I prepared was a 11.8 second car, and every now and again, if you were driving really, really slowly, it would high center. It would literally stop there on the track, stuck on the rails with its rear wheels in the air. And at the same time, there were no scratches taking. There were no damage occurring on the insulation tape on the motor, which is unusual because you really need to get that motor as close to the rails as you can to get the maximum magnet downforce from it. And I just couldn't get it anywhere near the rails without the car having this high centering problem. And it was partway through Saturday practice that I added some guide shims between the chassis and the guide, basically raising the nose of the chassis and the body shell. And the car started to behave a lot better. Anyway, during the latter part of qualifying on Saturday evening, I was busy in the bench with my Dremel attacking the motor pod. And I made some adjustments to the location of the motor in the motor pod, which meant that I had to change wheel diameter to get some ground clearance out of it. So I went from a smaller wheel to a larger wheel and tyre package to regain some ground clearance, which I'd taken away by moving the motor. And suddenly that unlocked the performance of the car. Now, the characteristic it had had all through practice and quali was that it was a little bit slithery. It went round relatively quickly, but that was being masked by the talents of our qualifying driver. And it basically just didn't look right. It looked slithery. And as soon as I raised everything that's made of plastic, the motor, the chassis, the body shell, and left the motor close to the rails, it unlocked the performance potential of the car. Went home Saturday night, spent a long time thinking about it, and decided to go in Sunday morning and make some more little changes to the car. And then during qualifying, the car was the best car we'd had all weekend. And that's a direct quote. Gary had said, "That's the best car we've had all weekend so far." And the lap times were showing the pace. And then we were like, well, we're happy with third. Let's get the car through tech. And then we can relax. We can continue if we want to. And it came in at 64.2 millimeters wide. And I was like, oh my word. I spent so much time and effort and paid so much attention to things like that. And there's a minor discrepancy. Only that one thing. Everything else was fine. But yeah, all I did was spin the front axle with a Dremel. Held some sandpaper along the outside tyre walls, both sides of the car, put that back through tech and passed. And like Gary says, lo and behold, it was dark. And it was like, now we've got to try and get a qualifying lap in the dark. And we did it. Like Gary said, we ran a few laps. They announced that they were going to put the lights back on. So we parked the car. Preservation, the car's got a last of 6 hours. The lights came back on, and I think we did improve the qualifying lap. We went from 11.5 to 11.3. 11.29 it might have been, but something close to 11.3. And that was like third place on the grid when pole was 11.1. And yeah, the race went really well. We started quite close to the front. Gary started again. Gio took over from Gary, and I followed Gio. And we went like that all the way until the darkness fell. And the darkness fell in the last 90 minutes. And because Gio loves to drive his cars in the dark, who wouldn't when he put all that effort into the lights. It actually went dark while Gio was driving. And I'm quite scared of the dark in Suzuka, because I've been there in the past and actually lost sight of my own car. And I was like, well, I don't love it here, but it is a thing that I want to break its back, because every time I've been here in the past, I've basically lost my car. If I've driven into a crash or had a crash and there are other cars involved, and there's a marshal stood between you and the track, replacing cars, sometimes you'll drive away from a crash and you'll not know which car is yours. You don't know what order the marshals put the cars back. And of course, the secret to all of this is just don't crash, because then it can't happen. Needless to say, I'm happy to say I did a 30-minute stint in the dark. I never lost sight of my own car once. I was capable of keeping eyes on with Pro Speed Academy, which was the car immediately in front of us. The gap to them kept fluctuating between 5 laps down as low as 3 laps, depending on who got driver changes taking place and when. I did notice, however, that on the odd occasion, I would drive away from a corner and the car didn't seem to accelerate like it typically would or normally should. And this just went in the memory bank. So I'm driving from 90 minutes to 60 minutes remaining. Gary took the car from 60 minutes to 30 minutes remaining. And when he came off the driver's stand, I remember in the pit stop, I decided to clean the braids, because I thought, this car's gone a long time without having its braids cleaned. I normally clean braids during a endurance race. In a driver change, it costs nothing in terms of time, because the car's stood in the pit lane while the drivers change over. So I got some lighter fluid on my toothbrush, flashed that across the braids and sent it in the last driver change before Gio began. And I said to Gary, did you ever feel the car coming off of a corner is a little bit wrong, a little bit slow? He said, all the way through the stint. Needless to say, we didn't know. We still didn't put our finger on exactly what had happened. But it came to light with about 15 minutes of the race remaining. I'm beginning to pack away my tools, my pit space, etc., etc. And suddenly I've got Gio on the podium shouting my name. And I'm like, what? What's the matter? I walk back to the trackside and a marshal puts the car in my hand and then another wheel. Now it's dark. So I have to take this car round to the hot pit, which is the only pit table that you're allowed to work on a car during the 6-hour endurance race. Similar to what we do at the 24-hour races. On the hot pit bench, I've got a tray of tools. And because it's well organised, I know exactly which wrench I need, and I pick that out of the box. But could I, put the hex wrench in the grub screw in the wheel? I could not see it. I could turn the wheel around. The wheels have got 2 holes in there for hex wrench for hex screws, and I ended up having to walk behind the race control just to get to where there might be some light to be able to put the hex wrench back in the wheel, put the wheel back on the car, put the car back in the pit lane, and Gio resumed. And all of this cost us 1 minute 30 seconds. The lap time that Gio did when the wheel came off was 1 minute 30. So it all happened in a flash, but it's the most significant, memorable moment of the whole race for us, because the rest of it just completely swimmingly, really. Now, that was the thing that meant that we were no longer in a race with Pro Speed Academy. And we finished 4th. And yeah, we had a great time together. As far as I'm concerned, it was a very successful event for us. The event was pretty darn successful. We did have one issue with Chrono and the race management. We did a driver change between Gio and Gary, and we lost 159 laps on the timing screen. And we went from running where we belonged to suddenly running like 3rd from last on the timing screen. It was like big investigation time. No one knew exactly what had happened or why. And this is something I've been talking to a few individuals about since the race. Of course, Maurizio Ferrari's there at the event. And yeah, we're talking about the technicalities of how this can happen and why it shouldn't, and one thing and another, but it did. And that was very unfortunate. Obviously, there must have been a post-race analysis of the positions to give us our rightful finishing position, and race control obviously sorted that out. But it's a shame. We also had a couple of instances, where our car went into pit mode. I wasn't driving it, but upon review of the chrono race timing, which I recorded for the whole, in fact, I live streamed for the whole event, so that people like yourselves could dip in and watch our progress if you wanted to. I've been able to review that video, and I can see, or Gio tells me, that when your identity box goes red on chrono, it's gone into pit mode. And when the car exits pit lane or pit mode, it's expecting to cross a magnet. Now, the pit lane at Suzuka doesn't actually have any magnets in it. So a car never goes into pit mode when it goes in that pit lane. So what was happening to us is every time our car went into pit mode, we would cross the start-finish line and the pit mode would unlock, but it wouldn't count the lap. And so it happened to Gary and it happened to Gio. And I think it happened to Gary on a couple of occasions, actually, where we did a double length lap. Now, the very first time this happened, I went to race. I spotted it because I was at the race. I was at this timing screen at the time. Gary went from being in third position or wherever he was running near the front, suddenly dropped down to like 8th or 9th in an instant. I remember walking to the trackside because I wasn't at the trackside, calling out to him, have you just had a really long crash that cost a whole lap? And he went, no. I wouldn't expect that to have been the case anyway. But when you see a double length, a lap length that's almost exactly double the length it should be, obviously you're suspicious. So I went to race control and they looked in their logs and they said, yeah, we can see that lap time. You must have missed the start-finish line. How do you miss the start-finish line when you're staying in the slot and driving around the track? Anyway, there's no mechanism for remedy for those situations. And we just had to race our way forward, back forward from there. So the race with Pro Speed would have been a lot closer if the timing system had functioned 100% perfectly. And if the wheel had not come off, we very might just have beaten them. But we're talking about 3 drivers and 6 hours of racing here, and with these results are now being decided by laps in the single digits. And it would really be nice if Oxygen and Chrono together worked perfectly. It's an ongoing project for Slot It, and I just wish it worked better. So it didn't spoil the event for us. We had a great time. It was a great team to be a member of. And if anyone's got any questions, the 3 of us are here. So fire away.
I had a question.
You didn't have anything to add, by the way. Just wanted to make that point.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you because I've got everything muted.
Well, you can mute yourself and unmute your phone so you can hear what we're talking about. Go ahead, Dewan.
Gio, how many wires are actually in that car that you put those lights in? That's the first question. And the second question is, what kind of microbots do you find to install those wires for you?
So for the wires, basically take the number of LEDs and multiply it by 2. Right? You need a positive and negative.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, maybe I should measure how many meters or feet of wires I install. That will be maybe a better kind
What's the gauge?
Measure. Huh?
What's the gauge of those wires?
36.
I just can't imagine.
Tiny.
Yeah, but I mean, actually, they're not too bad. I mean, the most difficult part, I think, before was to remove the insulation, because I was using like the scalpel for, you need to, because I buy them in rolls, 10 meters rolls from China. So that was the most difficult part. But now I have like a tool for doing that goes that to that small kind of gauge. So that is not a problem anymore. And so what was the second question? Is
Do
it
you have
micropod or
a micro robot that installs it all?
oh, micro rob? Yeah. So yeah, this is my micro rob.
How many LEDs in your car this time, Gio?
So I think this is the WEC had like the Cadillac had 32 LEDs, which I think is my record at the moment. But I think I'm gonna beat it with the next one, because the next one is gonna have 33. Because I forgot to do. I mean, I was not 100% sure, but I think the Cadillac, the logo in front also is kind of illuminated from the back.
Oh.
And then I saw later on a video of a photo shoot of the Hertz car, the Toyota one, and actually yes, the logo is retro illuminated. So for the next car I'm gonna build, I'm gonna slap an LEDs behind the badge of the car, the front badge. So it's gonna be 33.
So I had a question for Wayne. You say you guys had your car going into this pit mode. Were you the only ones that happened to?
No.
Okay.
It seems to me that the short lap problem still exists. If you're not familiar with the progress of oxygen in recent times, the cars have been counting extremely short laps, like 2 and 3 second laps, different for different circuits. But the accepted reason for this seems to be that the Hall sensor is being fired by a magnet that hasn't intentionally been placed under the track. People say that that's a lane changer, and the problem has been particularly prevalent at Suzuka because that track's actually got lots and lots of lane changers, and a lot of them are really close to the start-finish line. So it's affected us badly there in the past. Now, what the software developers have done in recent times is taken the short lap and looked at the lap next to it to determine whether or not that's also underneath the minimum lap time. And if these two laps are collectively both underneath the minimum lap time, it will usually add them together, score only one lap, and report that cumulative lap time. Now, I think I can see that on Chrono. I think it puts a yellow box behind the last lap that it's showing that might be a cumulative one. So there is a workaround in place. But I think the pit mode, I mean, what you may not know is that when your car enters pit lane, the identifier for pit mode and pit lane is the fact that there are two magnets in very close succession on the pit lane entry. And I think what is occurring is the car's crossing from start finish and getting to another magnetic event for the Hall sensor so quickly that it thinks it's gone into the pit lane.
Okay.
Now, at that point, the car
I just
should.
wondered. It sounds to me, and I'm not sure what the final solution will be, but maybe you need to go talk to A&B and see what the radio control car guys did with their transponders, because we never seem to have this kind of problem with those.
You know, the A&B transponder isn't a magnetic Hall sensor type device. It's a radio frequency. It's an RFID chip.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that we ditch the the hall sensor.
Ditch the whole sentence completely and go to an RFID.
Yeah, I mean, even that's not necessary. You know, you could, the main reason that they don't want to use infrared LEDs to track the cars, like for Scalextric and Carrera Digital and stuff, is because the longer the car ID code gets, meaning, you know, once you go past 6 cars, the number of pulses to ID a car gets longer and longer and longer. I mean, 1 through 6 gets longer and longer, right? 7 through 20 plus gets even longer, right? Which cannot be reliably and easily detected by a single sensor in the track. The solution is multiple sensors in a row to detect, you know, a longer signal, which some people here know Dr. C. Clive has developed such a thing and has proven it in his labs. But, you know, it's something that Slotted don't want to do, and, you know, for some reason it's not a viable solution.
Yeah.
I mean,
Perhaps I can just make a couple of comments myself as well, just from a sort of general oxygen point of view.
Yeah.
So there's 2 types of oxygen in-car chip, and they have different hall sensors. The type B chip has a hall sensor on 3 wires, and the type C chip has the sensor on a ribbon. And in my observation, without any data to prove it, the B chips are far more reliable in terms of their lap counting via their older, bigger hall sensor, and the C chips are more prone to errors. And that is just an unofficial observation that I have made, you know, after organizing and participating in a huge amount of oxygen races since the C chip was introduced. And secondarily, the Suzuka track and the nature of the racing that we did at the weekend is unusual and made it very hard for us to, or for Wayne, because I mean, I wasn't looking, for Wayne to identify what was actually going on. Because, as is explained, the pit mode is activated by double magnet, which most tracks will fit in their pit entrance. So the car will change lanes off the racetrack into the pit lane, where it will cross a double magnet, go into pit mode, and then there's a single magnet on the exit that takes it out of pit mode. And the system knows that that single magnet isn't the finish line because the car's in pit mode when it crosses it. But Suzuka isn't like that. As Gio said, there are no magnets at all in the Suzuka pit lane. They disable the pit function effectively. And the other confusing factor is that on Chrono, which is what most people use to configure the race when they're running oxygen, you'll have a speed value set for cars in pit mode. So, for example, the races that I organize and the tracks that I build, my pit speed is set to something like 40%. So whenever a car crosses those 2 magnets and goes into pit mode, it will drive at 40% of its maximum speed. Now, for the Suzuka race, the pit speed was set to 100%. So you wouldn't even know from driving the car if you were in pit mode or not, because you're just driving at the same speed as you would normally. So it certainly led to a confusing situation. And, you know, kudos in a way for Wayne to observing and figuring all this stuff out, because it's not the work of a moment, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, from my side, there is Wayne that you should mute your the laptop or one of your devices, Wayne.
Yeah, something's echoing.
Yeah. So from my side, when we were using like the B1 chips, so before the introduction of the B2 with the NC chips with the Bluetooth capabilities. So the B1, basically, I didn't observe almost 0 issues with the double counting or short laps. So basically the whole sense of B so sensitive. On the other hand, we also now with the B2 chips, I can see sometimes it's less often that this happens compared to C chip, as Gary was saying, but still there is more occurrences of fake labs with the B2 when compared to the B1. The other difference is also, the other difference is that it's much easier to change the whole sensors for the B2 because I have like the all sensors devices that I can easily swap if some of those are not playing both, the one coming with the chip. So I can solve the issue much quicker than with the C chip, where the devices are much smaller and also they are sitting on a Kapton ribbon, which is soldering on the Kapton is it's not that easy. Although I've managed, but it's not something that I would recommend. Ideally, I was talking with the Maurizio during the race. During the weekend, and I told him if we could have the initial part of the whole sensor of the C chip done as kind of a ribbon or one of those flat cables, but then maybe, I don't know, half of a centimeter like that in order to go inside the socket of the C chip, and then the rest being on wires, like 3 thin wires that go into a small PCB where the whole sensor, the whole device for the C chip will be sitting, which will make the routing or installing of the whole sensor easier, and also avoiding, because I don't know if basically there is some issue with damaging the Kapton tape when we have to write it or install into the chassis. That is causing these extra issues when compared to the B2 that is still on wire. But anyway, so this kind of too detailed.
So there has been a change to the ribbon for the C chip, hasn't there? The Kapton ribbon used to have some additional terminals on it that was a weak point if you managed to bend or break the tracks in that vicinity. So the latest version of the ribbon doesn't have those connection points. I don't think it's resolved the issue. It's certainly, we've still got short laps being registered at the Hall sensor, and I agree. If you could get a ribbon connection to the C chip and then put the B2 style Hall sensor on that by soldering it on, you're talking about a hybrid Hall sensor situation here, but that sounds like a very reasonable suggestion. And if it works, if we can do it, it might be worth trying to do.
For my side, I think that is something else, really. I think it's a combination of a few things, and you and I we discussed a little bit. It's more, well, maybe go into the details another time, but the combination of the car passing the start-finish line, the ship's resets because it loses the power when you go over lane changer, not the magnetics, not the whole set itself, really. But the ship turns on again, gets power again. It has it's a little bit miscommunication in the protocol between the ship and the controller. They don't agree if the previous lap has been reported or not. And that's why it's really no actually extra lap detected. It is just the car and the controller not agreeing on if a previous lap has been reported or not. And that's what causing the short lap. And it also then mostly then happens at the beginning of the lap. It can happen anywhere on lap because there's a delay sometimes in when the laps are reported, but usually happens in the early part of the lap. But I haven't confirmed that, verified that, but I'll look a little more into that. So I think we might be looking on. It's easy to look at the magnet sensor and know all that, but I think they are, let's say, looking at the wrong place really.
All right, I think we've bored everybody other than the digital people long enough. We can certainly keep talking about this stuff after the live broadcast ends, but for now, let's go ahead and switch gears back to show and tell and club corner and stuff. So anybody got any show and tell they want to do, or Club Corner, just raise your hand. We'll get to you. It doesn't matter what you want to do. Jim's got his hand up. Go ahead, Jim.
I got a little of both. So this past weekend, if you weren't aware, Electric Dreams had a grand reopening, and they also announced their 2025 race schedule. If you didn't see the grand opening, I thought maybe Dennis would say something, but he left. So it's on YouTube. They have the full live stream. It's like an hour and a half long on the whole grand opening. So it's on there if you want to see it. But the big announcement for us is that the 2025 race schedule is going to include a race at Motown. And so this is a big deal for us. And I know Mark Pollard from Motown and Marco put this together and in secret. And I've known about it for a little while, but it was finally announced this past Saturday. And so this is going to be a great a step forward for Motown, putting Motown even more on the map in slot car racing. And it's going to be one race of the MR Slot Car Challenge. The following month will be the similar race at Electric Dreams. So come May, we're going to have the MR Slot Car Challenge in collaboration with Electric Dreams. I'm not sure if that's the right technical term, but at Motown Raceway in Modesto. So this is extremely exciting for us up in Northern California. So I want to thank Mark and Marco for making this happen. We did have a race this last weekend. We went to Ted Essie's High Sierra Speedway, ran 4 classes. We had 9 people. It wasn't a huge turnout, but it was pretty good. So we had a lot of fun. The only reason I'm showing this is, one, the wings did not last on some of these cars. And I did get a win in Group C. But the big deal to me here is I tried a new tire, and it worked awesome. And it's a Racer Sideways hard 28 short tire, and it worked extremely well on the Group C cars on a wood track. So that's something new. And I do put up on on our site for the NorCal people a complete build sheet on some of the cars that I've raced at various races. And so that was Saturday afternoon. We got done about 4 o'clock with 4 races. And because we didn't have enough racing, we went over to Fast Track Hobbies, which is a 24 scale track. And I borrowed a car from a friend of mine. The car I borrowed is right up in front, the blue and yellow Mazda, and it's flexi cars. And I had not raced a flexi car in a long time. And we raced on this track, but we only raced 6 lanes. So when I got to red and black, it was a whole different ball game, even though they drive very similar to the lane next to them. So I had a lot of fun. I was able to get a 4th place out of 14 cars, so I was pretty happy with that. And I had about a 3-lap pit stop for a body tuck, so might have been on the podium. And the guys up front, Chris is a national champion in 24 scale Eurosport, so there's some pretty stiff competition at fast tracks on a weekly basis. And because that wasn't enough, last night we did our HO every other Tuesday HO race at Sean Lee's Roseville Raceway. That's the starting grid for the A main. We run these TFX cars. You have a choice of 3 different bodies. All the A main cars were the McLarens. Yeah, my car is the one on the left. I've got some decals from IndyCals and put a little bit of detailing on it. So a long weekend, very exciting. The announcement from Electric Dreams and Motown was amazing. And he also announced we're going to have a Professor Motors sponsored NSR Corvette race in September. So that will be for NSR Corvettes, any flavor of Corvette, C6, 7, or 8. And that'll be another 2-day race in September. So a lot of good stuff coming up and happening in Northern California.
Cool beans. Good stuff. Thank you for sharing, sir. And I think Mike had his hand up next. Go ahead, Mike. You're muted. You're muted. There you go.
Sorry about that. It put another window up, and I couldn't unmute the regular way. And I'm going, why the hell can I do that? Anyway, I have a couple of show and tells, and for some reason, I just managed to get the car that I was going to have a problem going back together. But I got 2 things to show. One is I got this Scalextric GT350 Mustang, and I must say that it's an improvement on things. Yeah, don't mind the stance right now because it's hitting something on the inside, and I haven't figured out what it is. It's pretty standard. It's not the flipped up motor. You can see I've already taken out the magnet and I've already put in a chip. I'm pretty satisfied with it. There's been a lot of talk lately about declining quality in Scalextric cars, but the body is spot on, and the chassis, I'll pull it apart a little bit here, has been strengthened a little bit along the sides and made a little stiffer. So I don't know if that'll cause an improvement. Generally on my track, the stiffer chassis do not work as well, but we'll see. I haven't gotten it on track yet. I just got it a little while ago. But I'm actually happy with it as far as the way it looks, and performance remains to be seen. The wheels are the Euro standard 5mm wide center upright portion. And that's a good thing. So it takes regular slotted tires, and you don't have to have a special tire for it. The rest of it is pretty decent. And the other thing I got, sort of a sad note on that, I picked up another one of these at a reasonable price. So I had 4 of them, and now I don't need 4 of them because of Retby's demise. So anyway, that's all I've got for that. But it'd be interesting to discuss the quality of Scalextric stuff overall, and see what other people think about it. For the most part, I've stopped buying Scalextric unless they've got something I really, really love. So, you know, there's or if I run onto a really screaming deal, if I run up on one of them to, you know, $25 or $30, it's like, well, okay, if it fits in the classes I've got, it's a good idea. And I still maintain GT3 classes in both Scalextric and Carrera. So I could take addition to that, but for the most part, I've started to wean myself off of them. No other manufacturer has come out with anything in Trans Am, especially, other than the small under 2-liter versions that Revoslot has come out with. So for Trans Am, Scalextric is the only show in town. Anyway, that's all I got.
I mean, what about Pioneer?
Well, Pioneer is basically similar to Scalextric. They are a little bit better. The motors are a little bit stronger, but they offer basically the Camaro and the Mustang, and that's it. Whereas Scalextric has oddballs. They have the AMC, the Javelin. They have now the Hornet came out. I might be interested in that one just for fun because it's an oddball car, and I'm sort of into oddball cars. And the Cougar is one of the cars that's available from Scalextric. So, yeah, you're right. They do make Trans Am cars, but they're not very prolific. Pioneer is very prolific. While they're a decent quality piece and pretty good about parts and stuff like that, whereas Scalextric is not. They don't have a lot of variety. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Yep. All right, let's give Eunice some time. What you got?
Okay. Let's see if I can get this up here. Yeah.
Oh. The share began, but then stopped.
Here we go.
There we go. I did some racing this weekend. I went to the NSR Swedish National for the first time this last weekend. It is for NSR GT and NSR Classic cars who race GTs on Saturday and Classics on Sunday. It's on a permanent Ninko track in the south of Sweden. We raced randomized heats, 2 rounds of randomized heats, and then the top 4 of the combined results went to the finals. I had a great car, and I managed to in the GT make the final against some really stiff competition. And now yeah. So I managed to make the final against arguably the 2 best 1/2 racers in Sweden and the track owner, and then me. And one of the guys really struggled with his car. He was deslotting out of corners, which made for some really close racing. I was in the final heat. I managed to get ahead of him and stay ahead of him until the end. And I was pushing so hard. I almost caught the track owner for second. You can see my car in the lower left-hand corner, and then where I have the arrow under the bridge is where the track owner finished. So I was really happy with that result. See the podium here, and yeah, this is what I felt like coming for the first time and getting a podium in the first race. Definitely not something I expected.
Yeah.
And here are the
I think we
results
can all appreciate that.
for that.
Meme is based
So-
on reality, by the way.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, Yona, if you keep doing this well, they're going to ban you. You know that.
No, the top guy finished 5 laps ahead of all of us. So
How many were
I
there?
think Oscar has raced at the Le Mans 24 Hours, hasn't he, Fiona?
yeah,
Recognise the name?
2019.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, I'm gonna say I recognised him in the photo. Yeah, cool, man.
Yeah.
Well done.
So yeah, I have some ways to go, but for a first outing, I was extremely happy with this. So on to the classics. These cars are really close. You can't really do much to them. So I found that my car is both of my cars were at the front of the field, but the classics were much closer because the other people didn't have as much freedom to mess it up as with the GTs. So the racing was really close. And Daniel, who finished 4th in the GTs, also struggled with his car here and didn't even make the finals. So here's the finals. I actually finished 2nd in the heats because Patrick, the track owner, had some issues with his car. and then I beat also beat Björn, the older guy. Yeah, I didn't do as well in the classics. I had a really close race with Björn in the first heat. I'd say we were within 2 meters for the whole 5 minutes. But as I got on the next lane, it was down on power on one of the straights, so I couldn't quite keep up with them anymore. So pushed too hard and had a few offs. So that cost me the half a lap I needed to get third. But finished fourth, which is still really great for my first time. So yeah, got some trophies back home.
Well done, sir.
Way to go, Una.
He's gonna be hitting top on the podium soon.
No, I don't think. I think they run like 10 of these, and I think Oscar has won almost all of them. He's on a completely different level. Arguably the best slot car driver I've seen race. So yeah, I don't think anyone is beating him anytime soon.
What's the number 1 for?
The number 1 that is for the rookie class. So I finished. I was the best placed rookie in both classes by quite some margin.
Yep, that makes sense. All right, all done?
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
Stop the share.
All right. Anybody else got anything they want to talk about? Hey, Rodney, have you been here before?
Been here once or twice. It's been a while, but yeah, I don't get too much time anymore. I got a couple young kids. I live in Colorado, and I got out to a few outings here with some competitive racing, but most of my time spent here on my home track now with my kids in the regular Carrera cars. So we beat the hell out of them and we have a blast. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind sharing. I'd love to, if we have the time, I'd love to share the track here in the background and show you guys what I have. I don't know if I've done that before or not. I can't recall. So
we might remember if you start, but go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Let me turn on a light, and you're on my laptop, so
don't drop us.
Yeah, exactly. That would not be a good idea. Yeah. So I actually, my favorite track is Circuit de Catalunya in Spain, as everyone knows. Big M's a fan. So Giovanni, if you go to sell that Wayland Cadillac, please let me know. I will buy it from you in a heartbeat, because I love Cadillac racing. It's absolutely my favorite team by far, GM Racing. I grew up in Flint.
I can make one for you. Usually the car that I race, I don't sell them. I use
Yeah,
it. I actually don't
you.
even race them anymore. I use it as a trophy. So if you want one, get in touch.
Okay, yeah, I will do that, because I definitely don't have the time to do the whole customization piece, but the taillights look really good from my standpoint. So nice job. So this is my track here. I'll try and do it justice here in terms of viewing. Let me get on another angle here to show you guys. But I have the start here, obviously, and then there's my pit lane. Carrera digital, functional, works good. And then I'll take you down into turn 1 here. So turn 1, if you Circuit de Catalunya, it kind of takes that turn and then the wide sweeping one as well. So I tried to integrate some aspects into the track. I had this track laid out in Circuit de Catalunya, and I have spare pieces, but I ended up customizing my own track. So this is what I was left with here because I wanted a little bit of different feel. So you go through the corner over here, there's a gravel pit, and then you come up and actually raise the level here above pit lane. So you ride right on the back of the pit lane here, going reverse traffic, obviously. There's 6 lane changes in the track across all parts of the track, so that way you can get around people. And then I also do like Laguna Seca. So I had Laguna Seca's Cooper tires oversight put over the track, which is pretty nice. And then this corner right here going into that is by far the number one spot where people fly off, because you're coming downhill, usually at the same speed as you would want to in a flat track, but people get a little loose around there, especially when we run no magnets. Not with my kids, clearly, because they're 4 and 2, so they just hold the throttle, which again is fun. And then I do like NASCAR, so I tried to implement a little bit of NASCAR flavor. So this turn over here, I actually banked it. It's hard to see, but it is banked a little bit, kind of like a lot of the NASCAR tracks are. So you again, lower cars, you'll actually hear them scraping along the backside over there because of the banking. And then coming around, there's another lane change here on the end before the pits. And yeah, this is the track. I run a lot of GT cars, you can see here. And for what it's worth to you all, the little pizza box stands, they work really good to keep the tires good. So I recommend buying them on Amazon. They're definitely worth it, so your tires don't get ruined. Yeah, this is the track.
Cool, man. I don't think I've seen that before.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And I got these Lionel train lights.
Oh, yeah.
Highly recommend those. They're double A's, and you can set them up anywhere, and it provides really good night racing. It looks really good at night too.
Yeah, a couple of the guys in my club have those on their tracks.
Yeah, they're nice. They work with that, and the scale looks pretty good too. They're not bad. So yeah, that's the
Are those vintage Lionel or something they offer now?
You know, it says Laymax on the bottom, so I'm not sure if you know what that is, but
Lemax, actually they
Lemax.
make a whole bunch of lighting and stuff for like Christmas
yeah,
dioramas
exactly.
and stuff. Yeah,
that's right.
That's
yeah.
it's Lemax. That's So
Lemax,
it's not Lionel, actually.
Not Lionel, Lemax. Yeah.
That's okay.
These things and these each light you can kind of turn and rotate as well to get a different spotlight on the track, which is really nice. So you can point
that's really that's really cool. And I don't know if next holiday season, if you have like a Home Depot or like some other, when Christmas is over, those things are like on major sale, and you can grab a whole bunch of stuff like that.
Yeah, I got 7 of them around the track. They work really good. So I have intentions to finish it and get it all, dioramaed up, but I ended up doing, I'll show you one more thing and then I'll let you guys get to it here. But there's foam board at dollar stores here in the US, and I glued 2 of them together, and they're very, very close to the height of the track here. So getting around the edge here, you can see, I don't know if you can see here, the drift marks from the cars. They actually slide right along there. So there's no abrasion of the tires and the cars flipping off. They actually slide right around the corner really
and
nicely.
you saved yourself a ton of money buying Carrera borders.
Yeah,
that's right. That was my goal, was to not buy Carrera borders. I didn't want to pay for those. So
we'll take it from an old guy. With your kids at their age, enjoy every minute, because there's going to be a point where they just will go, nah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Now I'll give you one more story. So I couldn't find any of these. I'm sure all of you know what these are, the little box to convert analog to digital, right? I got it from a gentleman in Australia, and it got sent here, and it was the start finish line was painted gray. It was actually a gray piece. And my OCD mind, I'm like, I can't have a gray piece on my track. So I had to tear that damn thing apart and put it inside of my start track. So I was very proud when I got that done. It was a lot of soldering, and I really haven't done a lot of soldering in my life. So I'm quite young. So that was my first experience with that, which was nice. But
we are afflicted.
Yeah. This is my son's car. He's 22 months old. This is the car he races. It is completely beat to shit, and I've taken all of the parts in the inside and put some lead in there. And for what it's worth, the tire weights at like Les Schwab and Discount Tire, they work really good. So he stays on the track most of the time now.
There's still a mirror.
Yeah. If you can believe that or not,
Both mirrors. Holy moly!
Both mirrors are still on there, but the chassis seen better days. There's only one screw in there holding it together, so he has a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good looking track. It's
yeah,
cool.
thank you.
Cool little track.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was my COVID project building this, so much appreciated.
Lots of those out there. All right, thank you, sir. Hopefully you can come back again soon and hang around, obviously, as long as you can.
Hope so.
All right, Jim, you got your hand up. What you got?
Yeah, I just got a quick one. I don't know if you saw this. This broke this morning that I assume Andrea is going to talk about the Lola tomorrow at 7:30 Italian time. So that should be, it's a live stream, so that should be pretty interesting. Definitely, I'm looking forward to that car. And Rodney, have you seen this?
I have seen that. Yeah, I talked with somebody on Facebook, I believe, about this track up in Loveland or up north of me for sure.
I think this is an HO track. I think he shows it in Maine. If you Google Catalunya slot car track on Facebook,
yes, all right. Yes, that's right. Yeah, I spoke with him a lot when I had my 132nd track. Yeah,
I just wondered if you'd seen that because it's one of the nicest tracks I've ever seen.
Yeah, I actually when he got done with this, I talked with him about it, and I mentioned to him just to give him some shit. I said, you know, that scoreboard at the end of the pit lane is about probably 3 inches too short, right? So I play Forza a lot, and I race this track all the time in my simulator. So it's awesome. My favorite track.
Yeah, there's a pretty nice there's a pretty nice Scalextric digital Catalunya. I think it's by a guy down under somewhere, but it's out there if you do some searching. But yeah,
it's a great track, and the layout lends itself to slot cars because it's rectangular.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, John, your turn.
Okay, well, I don't mean to give anyone whiplash, but this is actually just a bit of shameless self-promotion. Hopefully I'll be posting this on the weekend, but I thought I would show sort of what came out of the molds recently. And I don't know if anybody's interested in something like this. First of all, I'm not a truck guy, but this is I think it's a cool looking truck. And I got to tell you, the parts came out really, really well. So I literally just balanced them all together. So that it's not glued together or anything, but I just wanted to show what this F100 is going to look like. And you know what? It's going to turn out really, really well. So there's the front. There's the side. And believe it or not, yes, the tailgate works. How about that?
What year is that?
1956. It's a 56 Ford F100.
How many parts did you mold to make it up, John?
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, you see all that pink stuff? I mean, it's not just for it's not just for cancer research. Every mold is a piece of this thing. And then of course the badging is separate, the glass is separate. It's a lot, like the doors, seats, steering wheel, dashboard. And I'll show you in a minute. The interior turned out really, really well. And of course the motor, the engine is actually molded as well. And there it is there. So it has the air cleaner, block, valve covers, radiator. The battery I didn't put in, but the battery is a separate piece. Of course, the headlights are clear, bumpers. But yeah, I thought I'd just quickly show you guys. But yeah, the next episode should be out this weekend, just to show what this is like. Now the great thing is that this sort of bed thing, like the faux wood actually comes out. So if you want to do a sidewinder, you can. It's really kind of cool. I think it's got a lot of potential. It'll be fun. So there you go.
Fantastic.
Nice.
Also self-promotion. Some people have probably already noticed it, but I publicly freely shared Old Slot Racers Left Linker's how to build a wood slot car track video. There's really no reason to be selling it as a DVD anymore, so just go and look at it. How to build a wood slot car track from the pro. I've also freely shared the taping tool that I designed for 3D printing that was based off his original tool with some improvements. That is available free of charge for people to print their own and use. Yeah, so pretty much the only thing you need to contact me for is if you can't print your own thing or don't want to, or the strips. I still have a few strips to sell. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue that after the last few are gone though.
I have a silly question, Greg. If you have a plastic track, and you know how people like to put copper tape on their plastic track, will that tool actually facilitate that?
It depends on the track. The tool is designed for 1/8 inch pins to follow the slot with the small offset from the slot to where the tape goes, and then 7/32 inch wide copper coil tape. Rocco, shush. So like Scalextric, it won't work because the slot is too narrow. You could trim the pins so that it would go in the slot, but the tape would be half off the rail. It wouldn't be on the rail because Scalextric rails create the slot. They're literally right at the slot. It'll probably work fine on Carrera, maybe Policar and Scalauto and Ninco, maybe. But I personally do not recommend ever putting copper tape on a plastic rail track. Just don't. It won't last. You'll be doing repairs just as much. You'll be just as frustrated eventually. And if you decide, oh, well, that was a bad idea, I'm going to pull it off, you will regret ever having considered it, because then you'll be spending days getting the gunk that gets left behind by the copper tape. If you feel like you need to put copper tape on your plastic track, number one, don't. Number two, what you really need are more power taps and tightening the joints of the tracks. If you want to go super crazy like I did, you're never going to change your layout again for the foreseeable distant future. Solder wire jumpers between every joint of every rail and every track. You won't regret doing that work. But yeah.
How far or how long is your track, Greg? Is it as long as mine, or is it longer?
Probably lengthwise very similar. Mine's about 54 feet.
Okay. Because I power tapped mine once in the middle of the track, and I've only ran like 4 humans on it at the same time. But when you run AI, I can run 7 cars with the pace car, and it doesn't really. So
yeah, a lot of guys never feel the power loss.
Yeah.
But once you start getting into competitive racing with other guys,
I can imagine.
you start to feel it. And one of the guys, actually a couple of the guys in our club, they've got bigger tracks, and they have 1 or 2 or even 3 or 4 power taps, but they still have dead sections. They're not dead. They're not fully dead, right? But when your car comes around and you jam it because you're coming into the straight, the car will speed up, but not very speedily, not quickly, right? And then when your car comes back around to where there's a power tap or good joints and you hit it, the car just jumps, flies. And you're like, well, that's good power. And then you come around and that's not good power. But when you go through the work of what I did, it's good power everywhere. But a lot of guys don't notice it because they're just, they're going around at, relatively consistent speed, or, they just don't know what they don't know, until you compare good to not good. Not good is fine. Depends on what your demands are. But like I said, if you're at the point where you think putting copper tape on is going to help, back the heck up, eliminate the copper tape option, and put more power taps in. At the very least, more power taps. When people ask, Greg, how many power taps should I put in? The answer is as many as you're willing to put in. There is no such thing as too many power taps. My 54-foot track has 9 power taps. Each power tap goes to a section of the track that has had all the pieces soldered together, like I talked about earlier. So there are 9 sectors of track that can come apart. The sectors are not wired to the next sector. They just come apart like regular track does. So I can disconnect a sector, flip it over, do whatever maintenance I need to do, and then put it back down and reconnect it. So there are 9 of those in that short little 2-lane track. But I wanted, you know, at that point, before I got to do that work, I'm like, I had already experienced the poor power continuity of other guys' tracks. And I'm like, that's not going to happen. I'm not going to have that anymore, especially because I do digital, right? With analog, 1 car per lane, they're not sharing their power with other cars. But with digital, you get 6 cars coming around on the inside of a hairpin turn, and then they want to gun it in the straight, and they're all just kind of meh, because they don't have enough power for all 6 cars right there in that little area of track, especially if they have magnets in them. So, yeah. As many power taps as you're willing to put in. There's no such thing as too many. All right, I'm off my soapbox. We still got 20 minutes. What do you guys want to fill it with? Mike's trying.
I want to say congratulations to Yona. I actually watched some of that. There was a live stream. It was completely silent, and there wasn't a lot of detail. You couldn't see a race management program. But by scrubbing around in there, I managed to watch some of his heats, and certainly that sector, that first sector of the final that he spoke about in classics category, where he was literally, he said about 2 meters, but I think the truth is nearer to 2 feet. The whole 5 minutes, these cars were side by side, and you couldn't tell which one of them was going to get away from the other. It was phenomenal racing, and he said so. He let us know on the WhatsApp group. It was a fantastic race. He did a great job. It looked good. Look, he did a really good job. Well done, mate.
Oh, I still have my microphone on. Yeah, thank you. If we have nothing else to do, I could pull it up because
Well,
yeah,
you've got it, have you?
It's
hold on.
by far the best racing I've had.
Let Mike do whatever he wants to do, which will probably only be a few minutes, and then then you can show your thing. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I had a good race this week. I used PC Lap Counter again and encountered very little problem. I had a little issue with the ghost cars, which I think I've discovered the reason for is because when I reloaded PC Lap Counter for the updated version, it left Spa as the track, and I forgot to change it to to Road America Northwest, which changed the length of the track, which I think caused a slight problem with the ghost cars not being a little bit wonky. But we only had a little bit of trouble with the ghost car in the one race, and I was able to correct it as we were going along. But you know, we had enough track calls that it wasn't an issue, especially on that one. But it was we had some good racing. It was good fun. First one was sort of a runaway. I took that one because we choose the cars by, you know, basically by lot. You know, we shake dice to see who guesses first, and then the cars are hidden, and you pick 1, 2, or 3. And so I have no idea which one. Well, I ended up with the best car, and won it running away. But the second one, the cars were so close; they were within 25 thousandths of a second of each other. That's how quick they were, and so it was even up. Let me tell you. And it was a hard fought race, and it was won strictly by staying in the slot because I set it up so we've got a 5-second delay on the track call. So you get about a half a lap every time somebody falls off, and you can go. Of course, the only problem with that is it doesn't work if somebody de-slots in front of you and you hit them, then you don't get that half lap. But for the most part, you're penalized by coming out of the track, and it's a good thing. And I managed to win that one by 2 laps, but Shiggy was breathing down my neck. There was no letting off on that one, so I had to end up doing qualifying laps, and there was a lot of good back and forth. And with the ghost cars, it made a difference. There's one part where in the beginning where I just went, "Oh my God, I can't believe I actually did that," because I got between 2 ghost cars with less than a length of my car. I don't know how I managed to do it, but I did. It was one ghost car in each lane, and I split the difference between them just by diving between them. And it was like, oh, geez. So it was good fun. I enjoyed it, and everybody else did too. Still miss Ratby because he's always a competitor, or was always a competitor. So anyway, that's all I got.
Any racing is good.
Maybe you could name some of your ghost cars in his honor.
There you go.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I don't have to. I'd have to make a Ford then, because he wouldn't want a Porsche named after him. So that's a good idea, though, Wayne. I think I'll do that. I can probably get a Ford GT or something like that to use for the GT3 cars for the most part, and use that, because I've got a couple of Scalextric Ford GTs. So if I do the GT3 race or similar cars, I can do it that way. So that'd be cool. Yeah, good idea. Thanks.
Yeah, I like that. All right, thanks, Mike. Go ahead, Una.
Yeah. So just share this then.
You'll have to talk us through this.
That is a big track.
Whoa.
Oh yeah. So I am in the I'm this slower car in the
Yeah, we can't see any
the
cars.
gun lane. It's Oscar, so you can see him pulling away.
No, we can't see any movement at all. Oh wait,
You
I think I
can't.
saw. There we go. There's some flashing. Do you want to post the link in the chat and then I'll open it up, because I think it'll stream better from my computer.
Yeah, the cars were doing
Yeah.
2 feet each frame.
Yeah, 1 frame per lap.
Yeah.
You could see them on the grid. You're in one of the gutter lanes in this instance, aren't you?
Yes. So I'll post it in the chat,
I
and
think also your connection is crappy at the moment. So maybe you have another cable that was cut by a Russian boat or a Chinese boat.
Yeah, could do that.
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
turn off your video while I play the video, and then when you talk about it, it'll be good. Hold on, let's
Yeah.
share it.
Oh,
There we go. Okay, so you should see that.
yeah.
Okay, make sure it's playing here. I'm going to skip forward a little bit.
yeah. So I added the timestamp. If you
Oh, okay. I can't see the chat anymore. There it is. 8:46.
Oh, yeah, because that stream's 8 hours long, isn't it?
yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
watch the whole
8
thing.
hours. Okay.
Please forgive me. I didn't watch the whole thing.
Oh, that's fine. 8 hours, 46 minutes.
Is that an Inco track?
Yes.
Yeah.
An Inco track, but it doesn't have borders in the gutter lanes. So he's made wooden borders with sand in the paint
Oh, really?
as borders, but they're not
They'll eat
great.
your tires. Yeah, they'll eat your
Sorry?
tires. They will eat your tires, sand in the paint.
And in the, yeah.
Yeah. They'll eat your tires, and they will take your tires off the rims quite easily.
It's the rearmost 2 cars
And
in
they
this
have
race
less.
that we're looking at.
Sorry, what was that?
It's the 3rd and 4th place cars that we're looking at. Yona's the pink in the
Yeah.
gutter lane.
Okay.
And the car next to him, I think, is orange.
It's supposed to be red, I think, but
Okay.
yeah.
But you got ahead of him.
At the moment.
Yeah, so I got ahead. I got ahead early by a meter or two, and I thought that was it. But in this lane, I drove quite a comfortable pace, so it didn't come off, and I didn't want to push harder to get ahead. I felt quite comfortable just running my lane and not really just ignoring where he was, and made for some great racing.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
These are the cars with the big FK motors in, with the hole in the motor can. So they're clearly pulling quite a chunk of magnet downforce, despite not
No,
being.
these are the classics with.
Oh no, that's right.
Small cans.
You got the S cans in, yeah.
Yeah.
It was GT3s that ran the big motors, wasn't it? And what's a good lap time on this category on this track?
Yeah. So they didn't have great hands. I mean, Oscar was running in the 11 once, I think. He set a new track record of. My best lap was an 11. Five. Under 12 seconds, you were really fast.
These cars are like side by side now, and nobody's bumped the other.
Yeah.
And it looks like a really fun dice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody bobbled.
Yeah, bobbling makes all the difference. I mean, just a half spin or something close to it is enough to change positions in this.
Yeah. And they're really fun cars to drive as well. They're quite short, so they have a lot of weight on the guide, so you can push them really hard into corners.
Well, those are the Porsche 910 threes.
908 threes, yeah.
Yeah, 908 threes, sorry. Right.
And there's the white car, that's now come around in the other gutter lane. Has that come around and lapped you now?
I think it has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's gone, look. And that's Oscar, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nice rhythm to the track.
Yeah, it was a really nice track actually. It didn't take long for me to learn it.
No, it's got a really nice rhythm to it.
Yeah.
And this corner that you can't see, this left-hander at the bottom left corner of the screen, is actually elevated and is it slightly banked?
This one down here.
That cold.
Not sure, actually.
How many laps is this? How
Oh
long?
yeah, that was
it.
The heat was 5 minutes, but I think it's over more or less now because I got taken out by
Did we?
How long the scoops are that they have to use to pick the cars out?
Patrick, who was lapping me. Sorry?
I was just trying to find out where the takeout happened. Looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Another. Anyway, cool beans.
Yeah.
Where's my stop share button? Here it is.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like a great track. All right, 5 minutes.
A 5-minute warning.
The 5-minute warning, yeah. See if anybody on the tubes has a question. Nope, just saying hi, guys. Hey, everybody on the tubes.
Gio, where are your videos posted?
So on my YouTube channel.
Okay, and it's called Gio's YouTube channel.
I think it's a
Giovanni Rossello.
Giovanni Russello, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, if you do a YouTube search for Giovanni Russello, you'll find a off-topic video of approximately an hour duration, which is really fascinating to watch.
I've never
said.
searched it, so now I'm searching.
It's a year ago, and it's relevant.
Okay.
Yeah,
don't watch that.
I've watched that. Sorry, too late. Oh, by the way, there's a couple of other YouTube channels. Anyone who's watching might want to take a look at. Gary Skip's got one called Sports Car Racing, and a couple of years ago he did a really good 20-minute long review vlog of his Suzuka double digital event. So if anyone wants to know any more about what we talked about for the first hour of the chat, go and have a look at that video. Very well done, and it's a worthwhile shot. And obviously, my own Car Fun Mostly. Go and have a look there. There's some more digital content on there. In particular, a couple of videos I made last summer about the Paul Ricard event, which is now been announced as on again for 2025. The 24 hours of Paul Ricard.
No. I didn't look recently. When you do a live broadcast, you need to make sure that you choose to save it after it's happened. So like your lives are not available.
That's right. It was the first time I've ever done a live stream. First, second, and third. And they were live while they were live, but they've disappeared immediately afterwards.
Yeah, it's an option that you got to choose when you go live. You got to make sure to choose.
Yeah, there's some lessons to be learned there because it was more detailed and involved than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But it clearly went live because the 6 hour endurance. Yeah, the 6 hour race. When I stopped the stream, it immediately reported that I'd had 7 point something hours of view time, and I thought, how can that possibly be? But of course, that just means that one person watched it the whole way, and someone else dipped in and out from time to time. So yeah.
All right, Anders, you want to stick something in the last couple minutes?
Yeah, some quick advice. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Now then.
There we go.
Yep. So this is actually live in the same town nowadays as Jonan in Gothenburg, Sweden, and this is one of the clubs. I actually think the only club that exists now is here, where they race 124 scale cars, and these are cars like. Find those. Production, esport, and scale classes as well. So my quick question is, I need to get a good old analog controller. Thinking about this one. Probably some of you are using that, the Falco controller. And the question is, because they would run in PWM motors as well, does it work well with that? We had some discussion on that some episodes ago.
Anytime anybody asks about controllers, the first thing I suggest is that they talk to the people at the club that they're going to race at and ask them, what they're using, and ask them if you can try their controllers so that you can feel how they feel, because everybody's controller preference is going to be different.
Yeah,
but
I've been able to try those, but let's say I want to have some other alternative.
Yeah, so they had some suggestions for you. What were their suggestions?
Yeah, some checklist controllers which I never heard of.
Okay. So they're using brushless. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're beginning to lean in towards that. There's sort of, yeah, everybody doesn't agree upon that, but we'll probably end up there. So it's important that my new controller works with that in every type of situation.
I think Dennis would have some good input on this, but if I listened to him correctly when he spoke last, his finding is that if the controller is a resistor-based type controller, and I think the DeFalco one is, then it generally tends to work well with brushless control boards or eComs. It's the controllers that have difficulties tend to be the ones with a native PWM output.
Yeah. So I want to avoid those, but I think you said also one thing about the brakes last when we discussed it a few weeks ago. Something that the brakes on these motors.
I think he said a lot of controllers have undergone upgrades on their brake pot wattage capability because the little knobs don't have enough wattage to carry the current that the brushless systems can generate in the brakes, and so they've been getting hot and overheating and failing. But that would bear checking. Can't say that with certainty, but I think that's what he said.
Yeah.
Some of the racers in the group that I work with 124 scale are running brushless motors in theirs, and they have had no problem so far with the DeFalco controller. I have one, but I don't have a brushless motor car. But they have not had any trouble with them at all. There's a class down in the Tri-Cities that they have the brushless motors as the standard, and there's been no trouble at all using that. And I agree with Wayne. I think it's the PWM controllers that are causing the problems.
Right. Yeah, we've got probably 20 guys at the club, all running DeFalcos with brushless, all different motor strengths, no issues whatsoever.
Yep. Great.
If you have any issues, just give Jim DeFalco, send Jim DeFalco an email.
Yep.
Yeah, you shouldn't have any issues with brushless with a DeFalco. I run a third eye, and it's kind of like an on-off switch with a brushless because it is pulse width modulation. So that seems to be the sticking point. If it's a pulse width modulation controller, it probably won't work.
Yeah. So for this very purpose, I don't want to avoid those type of controllers.
And this is exclusively for brushless? Or are they running brush motors as well?
At the club now, they do a lot of other stuff. So they're sort of beginning to run brushless motors, but people want to stick with the old ones as well.
Okay, because the cars you showed were all JKs.
Yeah, but they're all old photos as well. So old club, old photos.
Okay.
All right, we're past the live stream time, but Rodney, did you have something you want to make sure the world sees or hears?
Absolutely, yes. I added a few photos in the chat for those of you that wanted to. I heard somebody talking about the lights when we were mentioning them, so show you the track at night. That was in the stages of me decorating it, so I don't know if you can pull them up or not, but they're in the chat there.
Yeah, let me pick one out here. Sure.
I made some changes. You obviously saw it live. There's a few iterations that I've made, but they're very minor. The lights work pretty well. So if you want to do night racing, they work great.
Yeah, that's really bright. That's awesome.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I tried a few different things, hobby lights and whatnot, but these definitely worked the best.
Oh, so it's called Pioneer Speedway? I just saw the name.
Yeah, that's the street I live on. So I went through and had a few signs made up. Yep. Yeah, pretty neat.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing, sir. We're going to stop the live stream, but like usual, we'll keep chatting. So everybody wave bye until next week. Bye. Hitting the end button.
Adios.
Done. So, all right. Chat amongst yourselves.